One of the strangest things about the channel DeivyDoesTutorials33 is the way he made his first two videos. His personality, descriptions, and comments aren't so different outside of them, but the content of those two videos feels off, like they're cheap imitations made by someone who's trying their hardest to be him, almost like it's a doppelganger. These 8 videos tell one of the most mysterious stories I've seen, and the key to it is a location called the Remains. So to truly understand this ARG, we're going to have to identify what the Remains is and how exactly it works by combing through these videos, starting with this first one. As the first entry in this series, video number 1 is a fairly tame tutorial for the Roblox game World Tower Defense. There's not much going on outside the Windows Movie Maker editing and the royalty-free music, but both of these indicate that this is probably made by a kid. Speaking of, we're given 2 people here, DeivyDoesTutorials33 and Geometry, who's presumably his friend. I say presumably because...
Hey, can you help me record the video I am making?
Maddie. Sorry, like I already said before, I don't want to record for your video. I think you should find someone else instead, sorry.
Yeah.
Now without music, the video continues on almost eerily. It's worth noting that Geometry's once happy face has changed to this sad one, and for good reason. Once the stage ends and the two teleport back to the hub...
Can I please leave now? I don't even like World Tower Defense anymore.
The outro cuts him off, and the video ends. Now, there's 3 important details I'd like for you to keep in mind as we continue through these videos. The capitalization on Davy's username, his sliding movement towards Geometry, and Geometry's face change, along with his general want to leave. You got that? Good. They're fairly important for understanding the anomaly we're going to encounter very soon. This video is pretty short, but still important. For around the first 40 seconds or so, Deivy does an intro. When he mentions himself, he capitalizes the D in does, a seemingly innocent typo on the surface, but we'll get into that later. For now, just know that his and Geometry's base usernames are DeivyDoes33 and Geometry Squared, respectively. Oh yeah, Geometry's here too, and he's happy right up until Deivy rudely tells him to get in, at which point his face turns sad, most likely at the prospect of being forced to help record once again. The two teleport into the burdensome level, and the video proceeds as normal all throughout. Deivy gives these little commentary tips once in a while, and at least from what we can see, Geometry kinda does the bare minimum, focusing on what I assume to be economy. Aside from that, nothing much else happens. The two beat the level, and the outro plays until the video ends. Alright, I know, the details highlighted here seem like they're insignificant, but I want you to take a leap of faith. Keep these details in mind as we skip over to the snippet of the 4th video really quickly. You catch that? I mean, aside from the fact that Deivy is a doppelganger, or at least something that looks exactly like him, take a look at the top right hand corner of the screen. Assuming that the Deivy playing here is the real Deivy, the username that has the capital D in does is the one that correlates to the real person. Think back to the previous 2 videos you just saw. Both times that username lacked that capital D, and I know what you're saying. It could just be a coincidental typo that he fixed later on. That brings us to my second point. That slide. The doppelganger here moved without any animation on his limbs, and we saw that exact same movement in the first video, when Deivy dragged Geometry into the recording. Yeah, the Deivy we've been watching so far, he's not the real Deivy. This guy's a complete doppelganger of the actual protagonist of this ARG. That seemingly minor capitalization of the D in Deivy's second self-introduction wasn't just for show. It was the doppelganger trying to pass as him. And if you're still skeptical about this, take a look at these descriptions and comments. It's odd. Like, despite the typos, you can understand what these words mean, but that's the thing. Some of these just don't have meaning. Extra epic awesome water content? And here, my cat stepped on an egg, so I had to repair the egg for 2 weeks? You get what I mean, right? It's something that's trying to be human, but coming just short of it, since it doesn't have that intrinsic human understanding. On one last note, some of the text in both descriptions have an additional space that shouldn't be there. This is what we'll call the doppel motive. Deivy's doppelganger exhibited it in the second video's intro. And for reference, all future descriptions have proper grammar and spacing. Here's an example of one made by the real Deivy. Alright, you still with me? I know that was a lot, but if you're going to remember anything about what makes these doppelgangers, remember this. The names will be slightly different and their movement will be animationless. With that out of the way, let's dive into the third video, the first time we see the actual Deivy. Deivy introduces himself and his friend, Z7K. We'll refer to him as Z from here on out. It's worth noting that he's actually interested in participating, unlike Geometry, who was forced by the Deivy doppel. And on that note, Deivy's username here has that capital D in does. It's safe to assume that this is the real one. The video continues through the common mistakes that beginners tend to make in World Tower Defense. Deivy's got some comically angry responses to these mistakes.
Dude, okay, is this how you want to play?
What did I do? What did I do?
But they're probably scripted. The pair rejoin a new instance every time they're demonstrating a different mistake. It's pretty lighthearted and honestly kinda funny right up until the fourth mistake. There's a history in the chat log demonstrating Z's skepticism.
Hey, before I joined, I saw that you originally did this channel with another guy. What happened to him?
Ooh, you're the only one I've done this week so far.
You're solo on this Yeltsin channel? No, I literally saw another person.
You must be crazy.
So Z's reasonably skeptical about Deivy's claim. I mean, if you don't look closely, it's easy to mix up Deivy with this doppelganger. But it makes sense that Deivy isn't aware what Z's talking about. He doesn't remember that collab because he wasn't there. Deivy and Z continue through the mistakes, where Deivy maintains his raging character persona. Eventually, the outro plays and the video ends. With that sound effect, mechanical and repeating. Now, hold on for just a second. We're not done yet. Around the 50-second point of this video, we get some commentary apologizing for Geometry's absence, saying that this is most likely the first-person view of Geometry, who's hiding away from Deivy and Z. But why? Is this because Deivy's double charged him during the first video? What exactly happened to him? And are these two events even connected in the first place? There's a lot of questions raised by this, but not much circumstantial evidence to answer them. At least, not yet. The content of the next video hold what I believe to be very promising information. The beginning of the fourth video features a snippet of a long chat between Deivy and Z, confirming that the interactions between the two in the previous video were completely scripted. They continue planning the approach of the next video until Z suddenly spots someone.
What was that?
Okay, let's go back a little bit. Yup. Its shirt color is a few shades too light and it has no walking animation towards the end. This is a doppelganger of Geometry, which is extremely concerning. With the way it remained visible just until Deivy saw it, it's almost like this doppelganger wanted to bait Deivy into entering this elevator. A few moments later, Deivy finally loads into the level's pregame. Shown on the screen ahead is his destination, the remains, and with no one else in the server, not even that Geometry doppelganger, only his vote is required to move forward. The local area is this desolate, foggy wasteland made up only of grey stone, unfinished structures, and dull ticking ambiance. There's no enemies, minimal income, and only one available unit for him to use. The rest have been forcibly removed from his loadout. He continues exploring to his right. These stone statues, almost identical in size to his avatar, line the area. Deivy presses forward, exploring the occasional structure, when he gains income out of nowhere.
Wait,
DeivyDoesTutorials33 has joined the server.
what?
The video ends. It's a bit of a shock, but based on the fact that there are more videos, we can conclude that Deivy's most likely alright. The description corroborates this.
What the fuck? I found out I can rejoin past server. I am scared. Any advice? Please.
He now has the option to rejoin the server, to re-enter the remains, which is concerning. Think about it. First he was baited by Geometry's doppel, and now he just got caught by his own. Whatever's happening, something's making these doppelgangers, and based on the bait tactic from Geometry's, plus the new option to rejoin the past server, it's clear that this something wants Deivy to keep returning to the remains. Why, exactly? Hopefully, this next video can shed some light on that. The fifth video opens with Deivy explaining what's been going on.
I've had the rejoin past server button for like a month now, and it's not been going away, even with all the time that's passed.
He's looking to re-enter the remains to further investigate the area. Around a minute into his monologue, Z joins.
No.
The two catch up for a bit. Z's curious about why Davy's been gone for a while, but Davy just brushes his questions off, even giving cop-out excuses for his solo recording endeavors.
I thought you hated solo.
Yeah, well, anything for the people.
And when Z asks about the remains that he saw in the chat history, Davy just leaves. This marks the second time Davy's entered the remains, and already things have changed. His settings are now completely gone, not even replaced by anything, just gone. He acknowledges this, but continues exploring.
Oh, there's something there.
With a bit of obbying, Davy enters this church-like structure, equipped with 2 kneeling statues and a tree in place of the usual lectern. Keep this tree in mind. It's the first instance of what we're going to call the tree motive. Since there's not much in this structure,
Oh shit.
DeivyDoesTutorials33 has joined the server. The enemy count has just increased to 1. Davy scrambles back to the safety of the base, putting down the only option for defense he's been given. It's kinda odd. He can't interact with it like a normal unit, so he checks the upgrade panel and...
Oh my god.
Davy and his doppelganger are at a standstill. The doppel clearly wants to approach, but can't. The tower's stopping him.
Get away from me.
Eventually, the doppelganger complies, leaving on the path to the right.
Dude, what was that?
Davy's a bit scared, but he still continues onward for the sake of the investigation. As he continues walking, he comes across the same area where the doppel caught him last time, and in the exact place of contact is now this stone statue. It doesn't mean much alone, but keep this in mind as we progress further through these videos. Davy's been walking for a while, and he's accrued enough money to upgrade his tower, but read its description. There are these odd spaces reminiscent of the doppel motive, but they're not quite it. These empty spots are from whole vowels missing, not from misplaced lettering. Around the 7.5 minute mark, Davy enters a temple.
No. No. The light didn't come back.
The area here has become extremely dark, leaving him to navigate with only the tower placement indicator. He places down the occasional tower and eventually finds some sort of lever.
I wonder what that did.
He keeps walking, but when he tries to place another tower, there's a discrepancy. Apparently the limit is 5, but Davy had placed down 8 in total. It's possible that this is just rules working differently in the remains, though it could be something more sinister, like his doppel destroying these lights as he continues to track Davy.
At this point, I straight up left the game and decided to come back to it another time after hearing sounds that I think is someone chasing me.
This video raises a lot of questions. That's someone chasing him. Who could that have been? And why was Davy given only this tower as a source of defense? What makes it so effective against these doppelgangers? The last question we can answer, but to do so, we'll have to go slightly off sequence here into the 7th video. This video was actually made by Z alone. Apparently, Davy asked him to review this tower specifically since he can't play, most likely due to his time in the remains. I found it slightly odd that Davy would have Z review this tower specifically until... Yeah, the Illuminator looks to be the same tower that Davy used to defend himself in the remains, and what really stands out to me about it is its usage, PvP. Davy had access to it in the remains, which implies that the remains is a PvP map, but if he was the only one in the server save for the doppelgangers, then who was he fighting? Who was summoning the doppels? Z continues through his overview of the Illuminator, which apparently has a placement limit of 4? Odd when you consider the 8 Davy placed and the alleged 5 limit that the remains establishes. Anyways, Z goes over its interactions and combs through the tower's different upgrades, and on its 3rd one, the tower turns into something very interesting. The tree motive, basically a miniature model of the one we saw in remains. The 4th upgrade does stray from this, turning it into an obelisk surrounded by what looks like tree roots, but the name doesn't get any less subtle than that. Remainings. It's a PvP tower with direct references to the remains in shape and name. It's incredibly significant, but there's one last item I'd like to cover before we delve into that.
Actually, there's one last thing I want to try to do. I have admittedly seen Daisy's recent videos.
Z tries to enter the remains himself and...
I don't get it, bruh. How did he do it?
No dice. He physically can't enter, almost like there's a prerequisite required to do so. Based on our current knowledge, you either need to have joined the remains with the doppelganger or already have encountered a doppel in the remains. But assuming that these doppels come from there, how are they made? They have to have an origin. Okay, hear me out. I believe that the remains is making these doppelgangers. It's a living, learning entity that can summon them as one would summon units or towers. That's why the Illuminator works against the doppelgangers. It's a PvP tower that destroys the enemy units sent against Deivy, the units sent by the remains. That being said, I don't think it has malicious intent. The area gave Deivy the only tool he needed to defend himself, the Illuminator. It's even referenced right there in the first area, the church, with the tree motif, almost like it's telling Deivy, defend yourself. No, the remains isn't trying to win against Deivy, it's trying to learn. It's trying to adjust the doppelgangers. Even the unrefined ones already have some degree of learning. Think back to the behavior Deivy's doppel exhibited when it got zapped. First off, it didn't immediately beeline to Deivy's base, it went to him. And when the tower zapped it, it didn't mindlessly keep running into it. It demonstrated a basic level of decision making and cost-benefit analysis. And if the unrefined ones can already do that, then what are the refined doppelgangers capable of? Remember the first two videos, most likely uploaded by a more refined version of Deivy's doppel, one that had more data to work with. Even that level of refinement wasn't enough. It produced a specific motive in its speech, focused too highly on Deivy's forceful and aggressive traits. The remains needs more data to train its doppelgangers more, and that's why it lets Deivy and only Deivy in, rather than Z. It needs Deivy to say more things, to act more in different situations, to give more characteristics that the doppelgangers can mimic. I want to make clear that this is just a working theory, but if it's true, it holds some incredibly scary implications. Let's take a look at them in this 6th video. The 6th video begins with a recap of recent events. For a second investigation into the remains, Deivy plans on using the driller drone accessory and talking to the viewer through post-production commentary. He feels like something's been listening in on him, which is pretty on the mark when we consider the remains' learning nature. Anyways, he re-enters using the rejoin past server icon. This time around, he plans on stalling for income just in case his doppelganger comes back. He takes screenshots of important items like the tree motif and returns back to stalling at the base. For whatever reason, the leaderboard option is now selectable, though he doesn't have access to it despite having a reliable internet source. The connection's being blocked by something, but what? DeivyDoesTutorials33 has joined the server. Deivy's been waiting for this. He places down a tower, except instead of being a stationary pole, the Illuminator now presents itself as a more offense-oriented lantern, most likely due to the driller drone accessory. However, there's no doppelganger to be found. It's changing its approach this time. With newfound protection, Deivy heads down the path to the left. He re-enters the darkened temple, which has the same kneeling statues as the church, and continues forward. He does note that the layout's changed from his previous investigation, another sign pointing to the remains being a living, changing entity. And speaking of, Deivy's tower limit has changed from a once high 8 to a mere 1. Whether this is from Driller Drone's interaction or the remains changing is unknown. Deivy mentions that this area tends to contradict itself often. He continues, eventually passing the area where that sudden noise caused him to quit out last time. He scopes the local area and Deivy's doppelganger just tried to sneak up on him. And in a panic, Deivy buys and upgrades his lanterns, bypassing the limit somehow. Even he's surprised, noting how the stats and descriptions might not even correlate to this particular tower. But he keeps moving on nonetheless, now keeping a watchful eye on his surroundings. Even so, though, he nearly gets caught off guard again. This time, Deivy gives chase, always ensuring that the doppel is within his sight. He gets a few good shots off when the lanterns suddenly break. His confidence is waning, but surely the doppel is hurting from those hits. Deivy later finds the limbs of his doppel, though something's off. The enemy counter is still at 1, so is this just a diversion? The doppelganger had already learned how to catch Deivy off guard, and it learning even further through this interaction wouldn't be out of the question. Luckily, though, the door behind him closes shut. His way back is blocked, for better or for worse, though he does find this mysterious door that lets him fast travel between the first and second base here. Neat. Deivy takes to the right and tries reconnecting to the leaderboard. Still nothing. He enters the cave, and once again the lighting darkens, which you'd expect. The inside, though, it's lined with ordered structures with dedicated houses, chairs, tables, and more of those stone statues. Odd. Outside the cave, Deivy comes across another tree motif, this time incredibly large. Perhaps this is the remains warning him to maintain a steady defense for a potential threat. Did you see that? There's a figure watching him, most likely another doppel, though it wasn't Davy's. Its shirt color was a distinct blue, and its behavior too. Similar to Geometry's doppel, it just left the moment it noticed Davy looking towards it. If there's any significance to this, it's something that'll be found only when Davy enters the cave. He does so. There are more of those uniform structures, more statues, but no sign of that figure. Davy turns around, exits the cave, and takes to the one across from him. It's cramped, maze-like, and generally more disordered, with some cliffsides stretching so far down you can't see the bottom. It's across one of these cliffs that Davy finds a tree motif, indicating that he may need to be on his guard here. He fully upgrades his lantern, turning it to a bright purple, ready for the incoming threat. He looks through what is almost this office space when Geometry joins.
Gia, is that you?
Do you need my help?
Yeah, of course. I've been walking around for 15 minutes.
Tell me what you see.
I see like some bars that kind of remind me of a jail cell, but nice really a jail cell.
Are you facing the jail cell right now?
Yeah,
Turn right. Do you see a long hallway?
of course.
Just walk down the long hallway.
This is really weird. Geometry's username has capitals where they shouldn't be, just like Davy's doppelganger in the first 2 videos. And he's uncannily familiar with this place, as if he's memorized the layout over and over again, unless he previously knew it from the start. The two eventually meet.
Oh my god. Hi Gia. Where have you been? Look, I am sorry, alright?
I've always been here.
Yep, that confirms it. Take a look at what we know. This Geometry's torso color is too light a shade when you compare it to the real Geometry's in the first 2 videos, and it's the same color as the doppel Geometry's torso in video number 4. He also has that uncharacteristic smile plastered on his face compared to the real Geometry's typical sad. And come on now, I've always been here? It doesn't get less subtle than that. This Geometry is a doppelganger, bored here and waiting for an opportunity to do something, but what?
I need you to follow me.
Why? What is this place?
It's important. Just trust me. We're safe here. Don't worry about it.
Geometry's doppel leads Davy further into the cave. When Davy tries to ask him about his whereabouts, the doppel dodges his questions and continues to lead him further. After a while, it leaves Davy to explore the small room with the chair and shelf until... Where Geometry's doppelganger once was now stands a stone statue, but that's the least of our problems here. The enemy counter has just increased to 2, but we didn't need to see that to know that something very hostile has just awoken. With the proximal thumping practically screaming that it's nearby, Davy has to be careful. During his attempts to locate this entity, Davy catches sight of this glowing red figure, who seems to be judging his position based on the lantern's lights. Davy pursues him while maintaining some distance, which is where the video ends. But hold on, let's rewind a little bit. Geometry's doppel was here, used by the remains as a bait to lure Davy closer to this entity. And once everything was set in place for the entity to be summoned, the remains no longer had a use for this doppel, leaving behind a stone statue. It's conjecture, but I'm positive that these stone statues are doppelgangers, just not currently being used. Geometry's doppel shifting into 1 here isn't the only instance where it's happened. When Davy's doppel caught him and caused him to leave, it also reverted back into that stone statue form. So with the sheer number of stone statues that line the remains, you have to ask, just how many doppelgangers has it made before? How long has it been doing this for? And on the note of Geometry's doppel, what even happened to the real Geometry, the one who showed up in the first 2 videos? His doppelganger was very functional. It was able to communicate, move normally, and stop itself from beelining to Davy immediately, implying that it's fairly advanced, that it's had a lot of information to be trained off of. You know what I'm getting at. Is Geometry somehow stuck in World Tower Defense? Or worse, the remains? It's bleak, and thankfully also conjecture. At least, conjecture that we can't confirm without watching the last video in this ARG. Davy's still tracking the figure enveloped in the red aura, with the entity not too far behind. He reaches a hole that the figure presumably jumps down, and after a little hesitation,
This might be a stupid idea.
he makes the descent. The hole's extremely deep. Davy himself opted to speed up the footage here, and doing so revealed a song in the background. Eventually he lands. The building in front of him is what appears to be a museum, equipped with functioning lights and art pieces to look at. There's the occasional statue and painting, but not anything of much importance outside of this tree motif. Danger might be ahead, but Davy's prepared for it now. He continues outside, where it's somehow raining. The path loops back inside to a different part of the museum, in which there are art gallery displays of houses and, well, a single light pole. Even Deivy says that it's odd for this to have its own dedicated room, but considering its efficacy against the doppelgangers, it's not surprising that the remains would display such a necessary defense as important. There's even a painting of the Illuminator here, with its roots forming the literal foundation of the remains. After all, without this light pole, players wouldn't stick around long enough for any valuable information to be acquired for proper doppelganger development. Deivy proceeds through the museum as usual. There are city skylines, more tree motifs, more paintings, and dogs, somehow. Totally made of stone, but not hostile, not something to be afraid of, unlike these paintings.
Here, this painting caught my attention. It seems to be Niangia. This seems to be me angrily walking away from someone. In this one, I am alone.
They depict Deivy in different situations, though he doesn't reference them to any particular event, so it's hard to say if they even happened before. The implications are scary nonetheless. The remains is either capable of generating its own content outside of doppelgangers, or it has access to the memories of those who enter. Deivy catches sight of another remains dog, which appears to be scratching itself. He reaches the museum's end and backtracks his steps to find a changed room. This tree motif didn't have rain coming down on it before, so it's possible that it needs water, seeing as the remains as a whole is a living entity. Deivy finally reaches a new area, passing over this office and ascending these stairs until he reaches the top. It took him nowhere near as much time to climb up it as it did for him to fall, so this area is still most certainly buried beneath another layer, though somehow the sky is visible. It doesn't make sense, but as Deivy mentioned earlier, the remains tends to contradict itself often. Another remains dog passes by, and Deivy confirms that they make some kind of noise. Take a listen for yourself. I want to note that this noise has been fairly prevalent during Deivy's time here, so it's within reason that these dogs are always nearby him, tracking him for whatever reason, maybe to gather more information for doppelganger production. The sparse forest Deivy travels in eventually leads to this circle of vegetation. There's a monolith standing at the center, pretty reminiscent of the Illuminator's level 4 upgrade, and Deivy's convinced that it has to do something. But with more to explore, he delves further into the forest until finally...
But I saw him again.
He follows him, ignoring this temple gate on the way. He can't afford to lose time. Deivy enters this abandoned city, fully knowing that this could be a trap, but he continues regardless. Into this building, into this hallway, when...
Okay, that's... Stop.
No.
Stop.
I am sorry.
Are you stupid?
I thought you were one of those doppelgangers. Look, I am really sorry.
Deivy's pretty apologetic, but the two manage to clear the air. They briefly talk about the doppelgangers going about when James asks why Deivy's here in the first place.
Well, have you seen someone called Geometry around?
No. Why?
I've been trying to find him, because he's my friend.
You looking for your friend?
Yeah, of course.
Why?
What do you mean why?
Do you need him?
Yeah, of course.
What if they betray you?
Then, I would leave them, because then you're a bad friend.
That makes everyone I knew a bad friend, then.
Something's off. It feels like James is leading into a point, but what?
Well, I think getting tricked and being let down is worse. People just disappoint me in general.
Wait,
The entity's here, right on cue, almost as if James summoned it. But that's the least of our concerns here. Deivy has to focus if he wants to survive.
Like, for example, it's a long story, but I'll make it short. I did really well in the PvP duo tournament, but
He observes that this entity seems to be an amalgam of all the different enemies and bosses in World Tower Defense. He dodges its attacks accordingly.
I pointed in spawn Blazemancer at late game. We were so far into the game, we just had to do one thing.
Deivy tries to get some chip damage in from a safe range. So far, he's doing pretty good for himself,
Literally late game.
but he nearly falls off the edge.
Please, he had all the money in the world. He couldn't do one thing. It was so great. So great.
He gets some decent damage off, but backs himself into a corner. He's lucky that his lanterns have a substantial amount of knockback. As if in frustration, the entity roars. Seeing that it's only at half health, Deivy takes the initiative and pushes forward. He narrowly falls off the edge again. Narrowly. He regains his footing and changes his approach, juking as best as he possibly can. And with just a bit of health left, the entity's weak. Deivy tries for a final push and takes it down. He makes sure that the amalgam is down. That fight took 60k of Deivy's money, and he doesn't have much else to fight with. After he feels safe,
dude, what the hell? Did you just try to kill me? Why?
It looked awesome. Okay, I think it was a waste of money. Or, never mind. That's cool, actually.
For a moment, he displays the doppel motive, but that's not important now. That amalgam is still alive, and Deivy needs to get as much distance as he possibly can. He tracks his way out of the cave with the amalgam in hot pursuit. It's definitely weakened, but still alive and more than capable of outlasting Davy's last lantern. After a close call, he focuses exclusively on fleeing.
Dude, where are you? I want to see some of the action.
With little options left, Davy buys the last lantern he can and focuses on destroying the bridge. He takes through the amalgam slams, which leads to its own downfall.
Oh my god. I wasn't even going to hurt you, but now I actually have a reason to.
What makes you say that?
You need to actually quit acting smart. You genuinely.
Check the enemy counter. I don't think my unit is gone.
There's no way. The darkness clears, and the enemy count drops to 1. Davy can finally confront James about this whole fiasco.
No, okay, wait. Stop.
Davy buys another lantern.
Please.
Now you're saying stop?
Yes, okay. I actually don't want to get zapped. Like that thing hurts. Like it genuinely hurts. I'm not kidding.
It's an odd way of putting it. It's almost as if James can feel pain from the lanterns.
Okay, but what about me? You kept attacking me, but you didn't stop.
It's not the same. Okay, whatever. You don't understand.
Davy's showing a lot of restraint here. It's pretty distinct from his Doppel's personality in the first 2 videos, where he forced his way without any consideration for geometry. That Davy would have most likely zapped James until he died. But the real Davy is kinder, and the two come to a temporary truce. Davy plans their next step while James addresses why he tried to kill him.
Honestly, I don't know. I was so angry about that.
About the, tournament thing you were ranting about?
Yes.
It's a throwaway answer, but I see its line of reasoning. James has a full theme of betrayal. His friends betrayed him. His accessory is literally named Betrayed, and he practically betrayed Davy when he summoned the amalgam. He needed to get that anger out, and Davy was the closest person he could direct it to. The pair talk about how they entered the remains. James just pressed to return the lobby after the tournament and somehow ended up here. As for Davy, well, you know what happened with him.
He let me into a challenge and I just got teleported here.
But that's nice.
Another instance of the Doppel motive, and James is suddenly changing his attitude about friends. Why? The two decide to head to the monolith that Davy found earlier, but a bit into their walk, something disturbing starts happening.
Hey, why do you have, rocks forming on you?
Huh? Oh, what? I didn't see these.
Let's tally off what we know. James can feel the in-game damage as actual pain. His username is in a gradient, similar to that of Geometry's doppelganger, and now he's got this stone appearing all over his body. James might not be who Davy thinks he is. In fact, he might not be who he himself thinks he is. The two continue to make their way back. Apparently, they've both uploaded footage of the remains on their YouTube channels. It's just that James can't check out Davy's channel for some reason.
I can't. Well, are you in the same boat as me, Davy?
You have a browser. What prevents you?
I don't know, I just can't. I just can't.
That's really weird. The two come across a playground. Shortly after they pass, Davy tries to search James up, but nothing. There wasn't even anything related to him there. It was just blank, almost as if all related search results had been wiped. Davy presses this matter. James dodges the questions.
Can we talk about something else?
He's hiding something. Something important. The conversation switches to World Tower Defense. Davy mentions how he prefers playing with his friends, while James just goes into public lobbies. When the topic of playing with his real-life friends comes up, James dodges the questions again.
I don't want to talk about all my IRL.
Another Doppel motive.
Why not? Just tell me, man.
I said I don't want to.
The topic trails off. Suddenly, something pressing comes to Davy's mind. The leaderboard. James isn't on there for Davy, and neither Davy nor Geometry are on there for James. Both of them had assumed the other was in the server before they themselves joined. I thought it was a coincidence before, but the evidence here is just stacking way too high. I think...
I didn't say this, but some of the earlier searches we saw looked familiar to me. I don't know why. It just looked familiar.
Seriously, another Doppel motive. The conversation moves to World Tower Defense accessories. James really enjoys using Betrayed, though he mentions how he does use other ones like Moonlight the License. That's when Deivy knew he was being bullshitted. There's nothing, neither in the Trello nor the Discord, about a Moonlight the License in World Tower Defense. It doesn't exist, despite James insisting that
It's been in the game since forever.
the two finally come across the obelisk. Deivy glances at James and notices that the stone on him has grown significantly. Or is it his avatar decaying, revealing the stone? Deivy asks if the stone has anything to do with James not being able to search him up online, and something clicks in James. Deivy has internet access, Deivy has real-life friends, Deivy has access to the outside world, but he himself doesn't. Why? Why are so many of the structures in here so familiar to him? Why is his avatar decaying into the stone? Why can he feel pain? Those doppelgangers from before. Maybe they're not so different.
Well, probably. You might be right.
Dude, you're scaring me. Why do you look like that?
James finally understands the situation. He's always been sentient, but now he's aware. His username reflects that.
Davey? Am I real?
I mean,
Davey?
yes?
Help me.
James wants confirmation. He needs confirmation. He needs someone to acknowledge this warped existence, this...
I won.
I am so sorry.
The vegetation around lights up, and it begins to rain once again. The remains grieves for one of its most advanced creations. It was so close to being a convincing human. It was right there. But it learned too much too fast. Deivy shifts about the obelisk and looks to the sky, then back down again. The enemy counter is still 1. The video ends. This is what I was trying to get at earlier. James wasn't a person, he was a doppelganger. Highly advanced, of course. Pretty much walked, talked, and acted like a normal person. But the signs were there. The gradient on his username, just like Geometry Stop, the fact that he can feel pain, his speech breaking down into more and more doppelmotives as he began trying to comprehend an existence that didn't add up. His own. The list goes on, but you get it. James, this James, wasn't a real person, which is incredibly concerning because an actual James Warrior 14 does exist. He's the pinned comment in the 8th video, saying, "Lol, great video, but that is literally not me at all. For someone I didn't know, the James in the video does sound a bit like me sometimes, but otherwise, that's not me at all. Good work though." And if that's not enough to convince you, he says this later in the reply chain. "Riddle me this, if I joined Roblox 2 months ago, and your video was supposedly 6 months old, would I be in the video?" James hadn't been in World Tower Defense before Deivy saw his doppelganger in the remains. As a matter of fact, he hadn't been in Roblox at all before then. We already established that the remains could access and influence the internet, but to create doppelgangers of someone it had never come into contact with before, and somehow get traits of the younger self right? The remains is learning quickly. Way too quickly. All Deivy can hope for is that its intention to remain non-malicious. Hopefully, learning will continue to be its most important objective for the foreseeable future. Alright, for the record, I know that there are absolutely holes in my remains theory, so tell you what, I'd love to discuss this ARG in the comments below. Tell me your interpretations, critique my own, let me know if there are any important details that I missed. And, you know, like and subscribe, baby, yeah!